Alright, let's get this started. This is going to be a really terribly done video tutorial on how to make some really simple zoom masks or scopes, whatever you want to call them. There's really two ways to do it. One of them is the original and official way you're supposed to do it, quote unquote. But there's another method that works a lot better. But first I'm going to show you the original method, which is to go down to a weapon tag, a HUD tag. So for whatever weapon you're using, in this case I'm going to be using the battle rifle up here. I'm going to go to hello there, and welcome to my really simple and really crudely done video tutorial on how to make some weapon scopes or zoom masks, as some might call them. I'm going to start off by doing it the original way, which is the way you're supposed to do it. But this method kind of sucks, it looks ugly, and it's always low res because there's no way to scale it. So whatever size you make the bitmap is the size that it shows up on screen. So here I have a few tags open, namely I have the Halo 2 battle rifle weapon HUD open because that's the one I'm going to be adding a zoom mask to. So this one is empty, it doesn't have one yet. If I were to load the game with this, it would be able to zoom in, but it wouldn't have a scope mask. So the way we're going to add one is you're going to scroll down all the way to the screen effects array. You're going to hit add, and then you're going to copy over any information used in the original stock sniper rifle weapon HUD. You can see the directory for it here. Since I'm using Moz, all I have to do is hit export and then choose a place to put it. I'll just put it in the root folder. So I'll name it sniper rifle scope settings. Hit enter, and then I can just come on over to the battle rifle tag, go to import, and then find that same tag I just exported. Hit yes. And then now all the settings for it are saved here. And what we want to do is remove the references to the sniper rifle scope mask, because that's not what we want to use with the battle rifle. So one thing to note about the scope mask used in the original method is that I think it was the alpha channel controls like how the blur is going to be rendered. I think I'll have to look into that some more. But for now, you should just have the RGB channel as the scope mask you want. Make sure that the borders around the edge of the bitmap are the color that you want it to be when it spreads out. Because the way the OG scope masks work is that it takes this image, puts it on the center of your screen, and then it drags out like the edge pixels on the top, bottom, left, and right. And it drags them infinitely so that there's no edge on the bitmap to be seen. So if I were to say put a pixel border of red or some other color around the border of this bitmap and then use it, the center of the screen when you zoom in would be gray, just like this, but then everything else beyond it would be red because it's extending that red border. So with that in mind, these bitmaps can actually be pretty small. You only need the detail that you want in there. So what we're going to do is I'm going to reference the battle rifle one here, if I can find it. Actually, you know what, I'll just use the sniper rifle one because I have no idea where that other one is. Or maybe I should find it. That might be easier. So I'll look for it in my old HUD tags. Was it weapon? No, weapon interface, bitmaps. Weapon masks, battle rifle scope mask. This is a really old one. So this is what the battle rifle one looks like. If you look at the alpha, it's just black. So I mean, you can see that the alpha channel doesn't do all that much. Look at the RGB. There's no other sequences. This is the only one, and I'm gonna close it. I'm gonna come up to this. I'm gonna hit save, And then ideally, oh, one thing I forgot to mention, your weapon tag has to have zoom enabled, obviously, because otherwise you won't be able to zoom. So the way you do that is in the actual weapon tag. So I'm going to go to the battle rifle for the elite, open that up. I'm going to scroll on down to, I haven't looked for it in a long time, should be, there we go, zoom levels. That's how you can choose how many times it's capable of zooming in. For example, the sniper rifle has 2, this battle rifle has 1, and the range. So for the first one, it'll be 2, and then 2. I don't really know how it determines if you have like 3 zoom states, how it chooses each one. Maybe it interpolates between. So since I have zoom enabled, I can just close that, and I can head over to my map. And I can make sure everything's saved, actually. Okay, and then compile the map. This one shouldn't take too long, it's really easy. Pretty small. So I'm gonna start my game now that it's compiled, the map.
Slayer.
I spawn with the battle rifle, the elite one that we just modified. So you can see we have the zoom mask that we just worked on. You can see that there's a blurring around the edges, kind of nasty. If you look at the bottom edges and the corners, there's a lot of blur. That's because of the screen effect settings. There's really no way to remove it that I know of. I know that Chimera has options to do it, and then Chimera also removes the oval shape of the image because for some reason HUD scaling doesn't work on scope masks, but Chimera has a specific option for it, so you might want to use that. And you can see that the bitmap itself is not the end. You can see that the gray extends well past beyond the circle in the middle, and this is what a scope mask looks like when you use it in the original method. This is what it looks like when you use it with my better one. So I use well, I'll explain how it works later. But you can see that there's no blurring of the edges. The rectangle is not stretched to the sides. And if you use, let's see, HUD scaling, it scales with the HUD itself. And if you move parts around, stay still, everything works just fine. So this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the better method, which is my Crosshair method. So what I'm going to do is use the battle rifle weapon HUD, go to the screen effects array and delete the entry that I made earlier. I'm going to go to my crosshairs array. See, here we only have the crosshair. So for example, look, sequence index 8, hit preview so I can see the bitmap being used. I'm going to go to sequence index 8. You can see it's the battle rifle crosshair. And then for this one, it's just the 2x and the 8x. And then there's no other entry. So what I'm going to do is hit add. I'm going to go to import, because in this case I've already prepared settings for it. Go to tags, HUD, weapons. I think it was human? Scope mask, there we go. So I'm going to use my scope mask settings. You don't really have to worry about having that file. All you have to do is make sure you know these settings here. Crosshair type zoom. This one doesn't really matter. Just make sure it's not on solo, I think. And just use any. That one always works. And then we're going to preview the bitmap, which is my rather large battle rifle image. See here, the RGB is completely black because I have no use for it, and the alpha is where the image is at. So you can see I have my better looking battle rifle crosshair here. And then actually, if we look at the older one for comparison, where's it at? It should be, oh, I never opened it. Weapon interface, bitmaps, weapon masks, battle rifle. Okay. So you can see there's quite a difference here. This one's bigger, high res. I mean, I made it myself from scratch. And you can tell that the bitmap itself is a lot bigger past its circle border. That's because, unfortunately, the game does not automatically extend the borders, which means you have to use a bigger image. And I'll explain the drawback of that later. So right now I have the settings, I set it to 0.5. The alpha for the default color doesn't really matter because, wait, actually it does, yeah. So I set the alpha to 255, that's the mask. And then I set the RGB to 0, which means it'll be completely transparent. So since the alpha is at 255, it's going to render at full strength. But since there's no RGB to like back it, I guess is the right word, it's going to appear completely black in game. So I'm going to hit save. And I'm going to compile my map again. This time you should be using the Crosshair one. Open that up. I'll put this one. Now that I've loaded the map. Ooh, I don't know why I turned on motion blur. Anyway, you see that I have the better crosshair. If you look down at the corners, the edges of the screen, you can see that nothing is blurred out. Here it is, because this human one is using the old one. You can see it's perfectly circular for the Crosshair method, and oval for the old method, and blurry and ugly, and all that junk. And nice and clean with the newer one. So, in this case, I'm going to show you how to make a custom zoom mask. It should work with either the Crosshair method or the original method. So here's the one I have for the battle rifle. And then, well, I also have the sniper rifle, rocket, beam rifle, fuel rod, and the carbine. So I'll try something simple like the rocket launcher one. So what you have to understand is, because of the way the alpha masking works, anything that's white will show up as black in the scope masks. So for example, this ring here will show up as black, completely opaque. And this gray will show up as like transparent gray. So I'm gonna make a new one. I'm gonna make a new layer. Let's just title it Battle Rifle Scope 2. So what I'm going to do is make a simple circle, get it to the center, expand it. I can't see how big it is, but I'm just going to eyeball it. Okay. Make sure the outline is white, give it 4 points of scale, and make the interior transparent. And then next what I'm going to do is make a rectangle. This will become the border. It's just the gray part. Make sure the fill is completely filled out. Use the color 125, 125, 125, just because it's kind of in the middle. Almost a perfect half gray, half white, half black. And then I'm going to take these two shapes, cut out that piece right there, get rid of this, and then now I have a, hang on, actually, send this to the back, and now I have a perfect crosshair for the, well, it's just a rocket launcher looking one. And then I'm gonna go in, oh, that's not the way I want to zoom in. I don't know why it's zooming in that way, but we're gonna do this. So I'm gonna go in. You can draw this however you want, whatever method you have for drawing. Just use whatever is best for you. I like to draw things by making shapes. Let's see. Rotate that, preview, rotate it by 90 degrees, copy it. And then what I'm gonna do next after that, make a circle, put it in the center also, expand it to about here, and then cut out everything in the center that I don't want. Delete. And this one should be white, so it shows up as black. So let's set 255 for all colors. And now you have a very, very simple scope. So I'm gonna hit export. This one would be G. So this part of the process doesn't really matter. You don't really have to pay attention to this. It's just how I draw them. What really matters is that you get this resulting image. It doesn't matter whether you do it in MS Paint, GIMP, or any other image processing software, just as long as you get kind of these results. I'm going to open the PNG file I exported with Photoshop. Bear with me that I didn't have it already open. I'm kind of flying by the seat of my pants here. Wait for it to load up because this thing takes a while. Save as. I'm going to save it at the root directory from my scopes. I'm going to title it test scope. Save it as a TIFF file because that's the only one that supports. Hit the default options. Now I'm going to make this an alpha channel. You can choose either channel, doesn't really matter since it's all monochrome. It doesn't matter whether you use red, green, or blue, they're all the same. So choose one, hit alpha. And then make a new layer, make this black, and then hit save. Now that that's there, come over here and you see the test scope. Now the reason I like using a Windows photo viewer is because it also previews with the alpha channels, so you can kind of see what it would look like in the game. So you see that everything here is black, and then the sniper rifle is black. The rocket launcher, the plasma cannon, carbine, beam rifle, and battle rifle. Here's the test one. So I'm going to go to pool over here. I'm going to compile the scope schematics because that's the folder where my thing is in. So once I read that the test has been compiled, the test bitmap. Test scope. Alright, I'm gonna go to the MOS. Instead of referencing the battle rifle one, I'm gonna reference the test scope. Open up the bitmap tag. You'll see that it hasn't been completely set up yet because I haven't changed the settings. So RGB is black and alpha is completely white. So there's basically no image here. I'll try interpolated alpha. Set the mid-map level to 1 because I don't need any downscaling. And then hit save on the tag. It's already saved. So go to pool, compile all the bitmaps again. Now again, the process of getting the bitmaps is up to you. This is just the way I do the entire HUD stuff. This is my workflow. So now that that's there, the RGB should be black, and just like I expected it to be. The alpha is where the image should be. So you can see that right here. So now when I go to, this is saved, now I can just compile the map again. I can probably just close that and let this finish compiling. Once this is done, I'll just go into my shortcuts and hit the Halo 2 one. I'm gonna start the game.
Slayer.
And you can see the new scope mask is being used. No blurring on the edges. It's a little bigger, but I wasn't really worried about proportions when I was making it. And everything works just fine. And now for this example, I'm going to show you what happens when you don't do the colors right for the scope masks. So I'm going to take my previous example one. I'm going to cut it to be square. So I'm just going to go make it the same size all around. And I'm going to take this side and make the colors, let's say, it doesn't really matter what color it is really. I'll make it darker. I'm gonna fill that up. Now that that's filled up, I'm gonna save it the way I did before. Save it as TIFF. Yeah. What is it open by? Oh, it's already open over here. There we go. Save as. And now what I'm going to do is compile the bitmaps again. Should compile real soon. Tesco, there it is. Alright, I'm going to go back to the battle rifle. Yeah, battle rifle. I'm going to go down to the crosshair, and I'm gonna delete it because we don't need it right now. I'm gonna go down to the screen effects and add it the way I showed previously. Copy that settings because I'm lazy, and thank goodness I don't have to re-enter this every single time. Delete that edges because we don't need it. And I'm gonna change the sniper one to the battle rifle one, the new one. So schematics, test scope. There we go. Now if we look at the changes, oh, it's pretty big actually. Let's see. Look at the alpha channel. It's square, and you can see the gray side I made there. Actually, I think I might need to make this a little bit smaller because it's not scalable. So if I make it really huge, it's gonna appear probably outside the boundaries of the screen. So I'll make it 25% because I think that's what the size of the previous ones were. Yeah, so hit save, recompile the bitmap again. You have to wait until you see the name of the bitmap that has been compiled. So now that I can preview it, it's smaller. Now, what I'm going to do is hit save. Go to pool and compile the map. Hopefully it should work just fine. You'll be able to see the issue of what happens when you mess up the border. Actually, I should mention that I made a small mistake. When you use it in the original version, the alpha can be empty, but the RGB is what has to contain the image. So I'm going to go to Photoshop. The alpha can stay there actually, but the RGB must contain the image you're going to use. I'm going to hit save. I'm going to recompile the bitmap. Once the bitmap is compiled, I'm going to confirm it through Moz, and then compile the map itself. So hit preview. Okay, that looks good. Alpha, that looks good. Hit save just in case, and compile the map. Give it a wait. The only reason I'm showing you this whole part is because I don't want to do any editing. So I'm gonna load up the map.
Slayer.
And now you see the issue of the border. So let's go to a brighter area. Somewhere here. You can see how on the very right side the bitmap isn't showing up. Technically it is showing up. it's just dark. I mean, it's just lighter in there because of the border colors. Because it takes the last pixel of the border and it extends it all the way around it infinitely. And that is how the bitmap covers the entire screen. But if the pixels are slightly off, you will see issues just like this one. So to avoid that, make sure that your borders and all your colors are exactly what you want them to be. As I mentioned previously, there are issues with the Crosshair method, which, is the better one. One of these issues being that, let me delete the settings here. Go to Crosshairs. One of the issues being that because the bitmap is technically crosshair, that means that the borders do not get extended infinitely. If you were to use a regular crosshair, you would see the borders and the bitmap would just end and it would look really off. So what I do is I add a radial gradient extending out from the center, and it ends in black so that it fades out. You can see that here where I've made a layer just for it. And then what I did, if you look at this in game, which I'll show you in just a second, and now here you'll see the problem with using the Crosshair method, which is that the borders of the bitmap are all too visible. Because the game does not take the edges and extend them indefinitely. It just shows you the way they are. Now, if we take the wider crosshair version, this one here, what you're doing is you're extending the border a little further out. But this is essentially only kicking the problem down the road, because if you play in ultra wide resolutions, you can actually see the border of the bitmap even if it's extended. And I'll show you right now what it looks like.
Slayer.
Now if you zoom in, it looks fine. But the truth is that the border of the bitmap has only been extended outward. It's just off screen and you can't quite see it. Now what I do to resolve the problem is I simply use what I call a blending bitmap. So what I'm going to do is open this custom image I've made, scope blend, and you will see here that I have made essentially an extension for the image. So this is an example of the battle rifle one. So what you see in the game is something like this. That's about what you see. So the truth is that the bitmap edges are visible all around the corners. Now when I use a radial gradient like this, it just fades out. But if you want to extend it even further, what I did was make a separate image that extends the edges out without necessarily making the bitmap bigger, because the battle rifle scope looks something like this in terms of size. But what I did was I scaled the image down, and then I add this, make it a small image, and then scale it up in the game so that it's not super huge, doesn't take up a lot of task space. And then when you go into the game, well, when you go into the tags and add it here, I'll import the settings for the scope blending. Yes, preview, and you'll see that the bitmap is relatively smaller. This just pushes the edges out, so this blends in with the fading out of the battle rifle image, which I do not have here because that's the test image. Hang on. Battle rifle. Preview that. Look at the alpha, and you'll see how it fades out into black, and then this one fades out from black into gray, and then out to black. Or I can just keep it all the way gray all around, and that just fills in the gaps. This way you can never notice the borders in the game. And this is really only a problem if you play in ultra wide resolutions, super short but super wide ones. More likely than not, you won't be encountering this issue, but it is better to be aware of it. I think that is all I have in terms of scope masks.